The rain poured heavily outside the glass walls of the office, blurring the city lights that sparkled like distant diamonds. Clara adjusted her headset and tried to ignore the whispers around her. Everyone seemed to be talking about the company's mysterious heir who had returned from abroad. Rumor had it that he was young, brilliant, and utterly uninterested in the spotlight. But when the elevator doors slid open and Lucas Devereux, the billionaire CEO's only son, stepped out in his tailored black suit, time seemed to freeze. Clara didn't know it yet, but this was the moment her quiet life as an assistant would turn into the kind of love story that would have the entire company and soon the internet talking. Lucas's eyes swept across the room with quiet confidence, the kind that made people straighten their posture and lower their voices. But when his gaze landed on Clara sitting by the corner desk, her hair tucked neatly behind her ear, he paused for a heartbeat too long. She looked up, their eyes meeting for the first time, and something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't attraction, not yet, more like curiosity wrapped in disbelief. He gave her a small nod before walking straight into his father's office. The moment the door closed, her co-workers leaned in, whispering and giggling, wondering why the new boss had looked at her like that. Clara tried to shake it off, unaware that this single glance would mark the beginning of a secret that would soon unravel in the most unexpected way. Lucas's eyes swept across the room with quiet confidence, the kind that made people straighten their posture and lower their voices. But when his gaze landed on Clara sitting by the corner desk, her hair tucked neatly behind her ear, he paused for a heartbeat too long. She looked up, their eyes meeting for the first time, and something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't attraction, not yet, more like curiosity wrapped in disbelief. He gave her a small nod before walking straight into his father's office. The moment the door closed, her co-workers leaned in, whispering and giggling, wondering why the new boss had looked at her like that. Clara tried to shake it off, unaware that this single glance would mark the beginning of a secret that would soon unravel in the most unexpected way. The next morning, Clara arrived at work earlier than usual, hoping to avoid any more gossip, but fate had other plans. Just as she was setting her files in order, the CEO's secretary approached her desk with a polite but urgent smile. "Clara, Mr. Devereux's son has requested you personally to assist him with the new expansion project," she said. Clara froze. "Me? There must be some mistake," she stammered. "No mistake," the secretary replied. He was quite specific. Within an hour, Clara found herself in Lucas Devereux's private office, sleek room filled with floor-to-ceiling windows and quiet authority. Lucas looked up from his laptop, his sharp blue eyes softening slightly as he gestured for her to sit. "I've gone through your reports," he began. "You're meticulous. I like that. I need someone I can trust." Clara nodded nervously, trying to focus on the documents he handed her, but every word he spoke seemed to pull her deeper into something she couldn't quite name. The air between them felt charged, professional, yet fragile, and when their hands brushed while exchanging a file, it was like electricity. Neither spoke of it, but both felt it. That day marked the beginning of something neither of them could hide for long. Weeks passed, and Clara found herself spending more time in Lucas's office than her own. They worked late into the evenings, their conversations shifting from spreadsheets to personal dreams. Lucas spoke about his time in London, his plans to change his father's old-fashioned business style, and his longing for something real in a world built on pretense. Clara, in turn, opened up about her modest background, how she worked hard to support her younger sister after their parents passed away. Lucas listened with quiet admiration. One night, as the city lights shimmered below, Lucas said softly, "You know, Clara, you're the only person here who talks to me like I'm not a headline." She smiled shyly. "That's because I don't read gossip, Mr. Devereux." He chuckled. "Then call me Lucas." For the first time, the professional wall between them cracked, and though neither admitted it, both knew they were stepping into dangerous territory. It started with a rumor. Someone had seen Lucas and Clara leave the office together late one night. The whispers spread fast, twisting the truth. By the next morning, Clara could feel the stares and hear the snide remarks. When Lucas walked into the office that day, He noticed instantly. They're talking, aren't they? He asked her privately. She looked away. It doesn't matter. I'm used to being invisible. But Lucas's jaw tightened. Not to me, you're not. He wanted to tell everyone to stop, to set the record straight, but that would only fuel the gossip. So instead, he did something even more dangerous. That evening, as the elevator doors closed and they found themselves alone, Lucas reached for her hand. Whatever they say, he whispered, don't let them make you doubt what's real. Her heart raced, the elevator dinged open, and just like that, they let go, pretending nothing had happened. But the truth was, everything had changed. Lucas began inviting Clara to off-site meetings, quiet places where they could talk freely. One evening, he took her to the company's private garden behind the headquarters, a place no one visited after hours. They sat on a stone bench under a canopy of stars, their laughter echoing softly. Then, silence fell, the kind that says everything words can't. Clara, Lucas murmured, I know this isn't supposed to happen, but I can't stop thinking about you. Her eyes widened. Lucas, you're my boss's son, if anyone finds out. He took her hand gently, then let it be our secret. And beneath the soft glow of the garden lights, he kissed her a kiss that was both forbidden and inevitable. From that night on, their secret relationship began, hidden behind professionalism and stolen glances. Their secret didn't stay hidden for long. One afternoon, a senior manager, Miss Delgado, called Clara into her office. She was cold, direct, and far too observant. I know what's going on between you and Lucas, she said sharply. Do you think people won't notice? You're risking everything, your job, your reputation. Clara's hands trembled. There's nothing to hide, she lied. Miss Delgado smirked. Don't insult me. I've seen this before. Women like you don't end up with men like him. Be careful or I'll make sure the CEO finds out. Clara left the office shaken, torn between love and fear. That evening, she told Lucas about the threat. His expression darkened. She won't touch you, he vowed. I'll protect you, always. But deep down, Clara knew no secret stays safe forever. It was a stormy night when Lucas showed up at Clara's apartment, drenched and breathless. I can't do this anymore, he said, his voice trembling. I don't care what my father thinks. I love you. Before she could respond, he dropped to one knee, holding a small velvet box. Inside was a diamond ring, simple but stunning. Clara Wells, he said, will you marry me? Tears welled in her eyes. Lucas, are you sure? This could ruin everything. I've never been more sure of anything. She nodded through her tears. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and for that brief, perfect moment, the world outside ceased to exist. It was their secret, a love too powerful to stay hidden for long. 2 weeks later, the secret was out. Photos of Lucas leaving Clara's apartment late at night hit the internet. The tabloids exploded. Billionaire's son engaged to his father's assistant. The office buzzed with chaos. Reporters camped outside the company gates. The CEO, Mr. Devereux, summoned Lucas and Clara to his office, his expression a mix of fury and disbelief. Lucas, do you have any idea what you've done? He thundered. Lucas stood firm. I've done what you never had the courage to do, follow my heart. Clara tried to apologize, but the older man silenced her. You've embarrassed this company. You're suspended immediately. Clara left in tears. Lucas followed, furious at his father but helpless against the storm they'd unleashed. Days turned into weeks. Clara stayed home, unsure if she'd ever see Lucas again. The ring still gleamed on her finger, a reminder of love born in silence but tested in chaos. Then, one morning, her phone buzzed with a message. Turn on the TV. On screen, Lucas stood at a press conference, cameras flashing all around him. I have nothing to hide, he said confidently. Yes, I'm in love with Clara Wells. She's not a scandal, she's my future. The crowd erupted. Within hours, social media shifted from mockery to admiration. People began calling it the most romantic secret proposal of the year. When Lucas showed up at her doorstep later that day, he smiled and whispered, Now everyone's talking, but for the right reasons. Clara fell into his arms, the world watching, but for once, she didn't care. Their love was no longer a secret. It was a story. The morning after Lucas's public confession, the company board was in turmoil. The Devereux name had always stood for power and control, not emotion. Investors were uneasy. Journalists camped outside the headquarters, and Clara's name was on every blog. Clara tried to disappear, staying off social media and ignoring the flashing cameras outside her apartment. She worried that Lucas had ruined his reputation for her. When he finally visited, she pleaded, "Lucas, maybe we should take a step back. Let things calm down." He shook his head. "No, Clara. I'd rather lose the company than lose you." But deep inside, she feared those words might come true and that love might not be enough to shield him from the empire he was meant to inherit. Mr. Devereux Seoster summoned Lucas to the mansion. The older man's voice thundered through the study. "You've made a mockery of everything I built. You will end this or I will cut you off from the company, the inheritance, and the Devereux name." Lucas met his father's glare without flinching. "Then cut me off," he said quietly, "because without love, all this wealth means nothing." His father slammed a fist on the desk. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." Lucas turned to leave. "No, father. For the first time, I'm making the right one." Outside, the press waited for a statement. Lucas gave none. He just drove away to Clara's apartment, ready to face the world beside her. The next few weeks were chaos. Lucas resigned from his executive position, shocking the business world. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's son chooses love over legacy." Clara was overwhelmed. She tried to convince Lucas to fight for his place in the company, but he refused. "I'll build my own empire," he told her, "and I'll do it with you." But as romantic as it sounded, reality began to bite. Lucas's accounts were frozen temporarily. Their names were dragged through talk shows, and Clara received anonymous threats telling her to leave him before she destroys him. She stayed strong, but every night, she lay awake wondering how long their love could withstand the world's judgment. 6 months later, Lucas launched his own tech startup, Devereux Solutions. The company promised innovation, ethics, and transparency, unlike his father's corporate empire. Clara stood by his side, managing operations quietly from behind the scenes. Slowly, their new venture began attracting investors who admired Lucas's courage. One evening, after a long day, Lucas looked at her with a soft smile. "Do you ever regret all we went through?" Clara shook her head. "No, because every choice led me to you." And for the first time in months, they felt a sense of peace, unaware that their next challenge would come not from the outside world, but from within the Devereux family itself. One afternoon, Clara received a message from an anonymous number. "You think you know Lucas? Ask him about the woman he left in London." Her heart sank. She wanted to ignore it, but curiosity gnawed at her. When Lucas came home that evening, she asked, "Who is Evelyn?" He froze. "Clara, it's not what you think." She stepped back. "Then tell me the truth." He sighed. "Evelyn was my ex-fiancée. My father arranged the engagement years ago, but I broke it off before I met you." Tears welled in her eyes. "And you didn't think to tell me?" "I was trying to protect you," he said quietly. "She's the one feeding lies to the media now." The truth stung, but deeper than anger was fear that the ghosts of his past might destroy the fragile life they had built together. Soon after, the scandal reignited. Evelyn appeared on a talk show, claiming Lucas had cheated on her with Clara while they were still engaged. The internet exploded again. Hashtags, hate comments, and edited photos flooded social media. Clara's inbox filled with threats. She couldn't even go out in public. Lucas tried to fix it, hiring lawyers and issuing statements, but the damage was done. Their investors pulled out, and Devereux Solutions began to crumble. One night, as they sat in silence, Clara whispered, "Maybe we weren't meant to survive this." Lucas took her hand, eyes full of quiet determination. "No, they can take everything but not us." But even he couldn't stop what came next. Evelyn wasn't done. She leaked fake documents implying Clara had used insider information from Lucas's old company. The authorities launched an investigation. Cameras followed Clara everywhere. She was labeled a gold digger and corporate spy. Lucas stood by her side, but the stress was unbearable. They fought for the first time, shouting words neither meant. "I gave up everything for you," Lucas cried. "And I never asked you to," Clara shot back through tears. Silence filled the room afterward. Two hearts, bruised and tired, now wondered if love was still enough. That night, Clara packed a bag and left, leaving behind her ring and a note that read only, "Sometimes love needs distance to breathe." Months passed. Clara moved to a small coastal town under a new job, trying to start over. She stopped reading news, stopped answering calls, but she never stopped thinking about Lucas. Back in the city, Lucas was a shadow of himself. The company was struggling, and his father's empire had taken advantage of his absence. Yet every morning, he reread Clara's note, and every night, he whispered her name into the emptiness. Until one day, he saw a story online a local paper had written about a woman who helped rebuild a small orphanage by the sea. Her name was Clara Wells. He didn't hesitate. He packed his bag and drove for hours, determined to find her again. Clara was watering flowers outside the orphanage when a familiar voice said softly, "You still love lilies." She turned, and there he was, Lucas, older, tired, but with the same warmth in his eyes. She froze. "You shouldn't be here." "I had to be," he said. "The company can wait. My heart can't." Tears filled her eyes. "Lucas, too much has happened." He stepped closer. "Then let's start over. No scandals. No secrets. Just us." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she nodded slowly, whispering, "Only if you promise this time no more running." He smiled, "Only toward you." And in that small town by the sea, they held each other again, not as billionaire and assistant, but as two souls who had fought the world and found their way back. A year later, the world tuned in again, but this time, not for gossip. The Devereux estate was decorated in soft white roses. Reporters lined the gates, but there was no scandal, only admiration. Lucas's father had finally come around, humbled by his son's perseverance. As Clara walked down the aisle in a simple gown, the once divided family stood united. Lucas couldn't stop smiling as he took her hand. "I once said I'd give up everything for you," he whispered, "but it turns out you gave everything meaning." When they kissed, the crowd erupted. News outlets called it the most beautiful love story of the decade. And as the cameras flashed, Clara whispered back, "Now everyone's talking, but for all the right reasons." After the wedding, Clara and Lucas escaped the noise of the city for a quiet honeymoon in Santorini. Away from cameras and headlines, they finally lived like ordinary lovers, barefoot walks on white beaches, laughter under the moonlight, and no secrets. Lucas often said, "This is what freedom feels like." Clara would smile and reply, "No, this is what love feels like." When they returned, things had changed. The Devereux empire was calmer, and Mr. Devereux Seoster, humbled by time, began to rely on Lucas for advice. Clara was welcomed back into the company, this time as a consultant, not an assistant. They had both fallen, fought, and risen, and now the world watched as they built something new. A year later, Lucas and Clara became the faces of transformation. Together, they launched the Devereux Foundation, a charity that focused on education and employment for underprivileged youth. In every interview, Clara spoke softly but powerfully, not as the billionaire's wife, but as a woman who had worked her way up. Her humility captured the hearts of millions. "She reminds us that love isn't weakness," one journalist wrote, "it's the greatest strength." Lucas watched her proudly from the sidelines, often telling her, "You're the reason I believe in second chances." But success often attracts shadows, and theirs was about to resurface in a form they never expected. It was at a charity gala that Evelyn appeared again, dressed elegantly, a sharp smile playing on her lips. She walked straight up to Clara. "Congratulations," Evelyn said smoothly. "You won. But remember, every empire has cracks." Clara smiled politely, Then I guess ours will shine through them. Lucas saw the exchange from across the room and tensed. He knew Evelyn wasn't done. She never appeared without a reason. Later that week, a confidential report leaked, one hinting that the Devereux Foundation's funds were being mismanaged. The headlines returned overnight. For the first time in a long while, Clara's faith began to shake. Investigators arrived at their office. Reporters hounded Clara with questions. Did you steal charity funds? Is this another scandal? Lucas stood by her, but even he was under scrutiny now. The foundation's accounts were frozen pending review. Clara stayed quiet, heartbroken that years of hard work were now being twisted. Someone's setting us up, she told Lucas one night, voice trembling. He nodded grimly. And I think I know who. But Evelyn was clever. Every trail they followed led nowhere. And as the pressure mounted, Clara began to wonder if the world would ever stop punishing her for falling in love. One evening, Clara received a message from a former assistant of Evelyn's. I have proof. Meet me alone. Ignoring Lucas's pleas to wait for the authorities, she went to the meeting at an old cafe downtown. The assistant handed her a flash drive. Evelyn planned everything. She hired someone inside your foundation to move the funds temporarily to frame you. Before Clara could ask more, the woman disappeared into the crowd. Clara returned home, shaken but hopeful. Lucas took the drive, jaw clenched. If this is real, we'll end this once and for all. For the first time in weeks, there was light at the end of the tunnel. Lucas and Clara gathered the board and the press. In a live-streamed conference, they presented undeniable evidence from the flash drive recordings, emails, and contracts linking Evelyn to the fake scandal. The truth exploded online. Evelyn was exposed, arrested for fraud, and charged with defamation. The world's sympathy shifted once again. People applauded Clara for her grace under pressure. When a journalist asked, "How did you stay calm through all this?" Clara smiled and replied, "Because when you've already lost everything once, you stop fearing what the world says." The applause that followed was thunderous. Months later, Clara and Lucas moved into a countryside mansion that had belonged to Lucas's late mother. In the attic, Clara discovered an old chest filled with letters, love letters between Lucas's parents, back when they were young and struggling. She brought them to Mr. Devereux. He read them silently, tears welling in his eyes. "I forgot what love looked like," he admitted. "You both reminded me." That day, he made a public statement reinstating Lucas as co-chairman of the Devereux Group and honoring Clara as a pillar of its new direction. It was a full-circle moment. The assistant who once fetched coffee was now shaping a billion-dollar legacy. As their foundation flourished again, Clara began another project, a mentorship program for young women in business. Her speeches inspired millions across social media. She said in one viral video, "They called me lucky, but luck didn't bring me here. Love did. And love is not just romance, it's resilience." Lucas watched proudly from backstage. Later, he surprised her with something that left her speechless, a key to a new home overlooking the sea, the same place where they had reunited years ago. "It's where our love healed," he said. "Now it's where our future begins." After years of waiting, Clara received news that changed everything. She was pregnant. The couple cried tears of joy, holding each other tightly as they imagined a new life entering their world. 9 months later, their daughter was born, Amelia Rose Devereux. Her birth was celebrated across the media as the beginning of the next Devereux generation. Clara whispered to her newborn, "You're a miracle, proof that love survives anything." Lucas added softly, "And one day, you'll hear our story, not the one the world told, but the truth." Their home was filled with laughter again, the kind that echoes through generations. Years later, the story of Clara and Lucas became legend, retold in documentaries, books, and news specials, but to them, it was never about fame. It was about faith. At a ceremony celebrating the Devereux Foundation's 10th anniversary, Clara stood at the podium beside Lucas, their daughter smiling in the crowd. She said, "Once, I was just a quiet assistant who believed love could exist in impossible places. Today, I stand here to tell you it can, because true love doesn't whisper, It roars, even when the world tries to silence it. The audience rose to their feet in applause. As the lights dimmed, Lucas took her hand and whispered, "Now everyone's still talking, Clara, but this time, they're talking about our forever." And under the soft glow of the spotlight, the once secret lovers shared a kiss, sealing not just their story, but their legacy.